said, in order to manifest success, you must first endure pain and overcome it with faith. Today's guest may be able to relate well to that. Welcome to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Lauren Stemberger.
And I'm Chris Benson. Joining us today is a Detroit success story, Kevin L. Brown, author of Chasing Crows, which presents the true events of a child born to poverty and subjected to a dysfunctional household. We talk about his struggles and his successes. Join me in welcoming author Kevin L. Brown to Celebrate Michigan. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Love being here. Thank you.
Great.
So Kevin, can you talk about your experiences growing up in Detroit as a youth?
Well, I'm from Detroit. I was born and raised on the Detroit's east side. My mother worked at the post office downtown. She worked the midnight shift. And because of that, I didn't have the interaction that most children would have with their parents. And it got to a point where my education suffered because of that. And so I was labeled illiterate as a child. I ended up failing the 3rd and 7th grades in school. I was suicidal as a child. I remember the first time I actually tried to commit suicide is when I was 8 years old. But then as a teenager, I got involved in gang activity, trying to reach out, trying to find some kind of idea of what a family is. And through that, I committed armed robbery when I was 17. And after I committed armed robbery, I was sentenced to 3 to 15 years in prison. And after I got out, I wanted change for myself. I didn't think that my life ended there. I didn't care if I was labeled a statistic. I didn't care if I failed the 3rd and 7th grades. I wasn't care. I was labeled illiterate as a child. I didn't care. I wanted change for myself. I wanted something better for me and my son. And so as a way to change my life around, I used education as that. In spite of everything that I faced, I went to Wayne State University. I remember the first time I actually even enrolled there, I had to take the ACT, and I ended up failing it miserably. And I had to take some intermediate courses to actually even get on track. But to make a long story short, when I graduated from Wayne State, I was actually ended up being the valedictorian. I was the first black person to ever be president of the student government. I was nominated as the most outstanding student of the year for the School of Business Administration. I was inducted to the David McKenzie Honor Society, which represents the top 0.5% of all students who ever attend Wayne State. And in 2010, I got my MBA, my Master's in Business Administration.
That's great. Well, congratulations.
Oh,
That's
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
What an accomplishment.
So, gosh, now, you're very successful, but thinking back to yourself as like a 16-year-old child, how did you get through the daily struggle of that? Because, of course, if you had known I'm going to be successful, I'm going to get through this, but we never know. So
Right.
Thinking back on that, how did you get through those daily struggles?
Well, you have to have faith. You have to know that you have to have internal faith that what you see now isn't what you're going to be in the future. And you have to have vision for yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to take yourself out of the situation and understand that regardless of where I come from, regardless of where I'm at, there's something I'm trying to get to. And I had that determination within me ever since I was a child. The main problem with me is I didn't have any direction. I always had the ability, but I didn't have the direction in my life. And I think if I had that direction, my life would have took a different way than it went.
And you mentioned at the time in prison, also struggling to get through that every day. What got you through that experience so that you came out on the other side stronger, determined, focused? Thinking back to that, what got you through?
Prison was actually an intervention. Prison saved me. Prison was actually, my grandmother used to always tell me that a lot of our blessings come dressed as tragedies, and that's so true, because prison took me from an environment where it was very hostile, that like a lot of my friends after I got incarcerated were either killed or committed murder and served like very long sentences. But prison took me out of that environment, and it put me in an environment where I was surrounded by actually positive individual. A guy named Jeff I met in prison who actually sat me down and told me, like, young man, this is not for you. I spent my life in prison. There's something in you that I see. And just because of that one person who believed in me, that saw something in myself that I didn't, that was really what pivoted my life and where I headed in a different direction.
A mentor, someone that...
And the funny thing is, I found them in prison. Yeah.
An unlikely of places,
Exactly.
but again, life-saving for you, it sounds like. Wonderful.
Right.
So what do you think separates you from all of the other, or at that time, the youth in Detroit or those in prison? I know you did talk about you had a mentor in prison. Is there anything else that you think separates you from The others?
Well, I know, like, I talk to kids all around the city and all around the country, and the main thing I realized was my why, the why I was doing something was very passionate, very strong. I became a single father after I got, released from prison. And I wanted to show him that regardless to where you come from, regardless to the things that you do in your life, regardless to what other people say, you still can achieve and generate success for yourself. So my why to why I wanted education was really strong. It was like some people go to school for money. If you do something for money, once you get it, your passion dries up. But see, because I was doing it for my son, it was this relentless passion. I didn't mind not sleeping for 3 hours a day. I didn't mind studying for one class 70 hours a week. I didn't mind because I had something that I was willing to die for, which was my child.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you look back on society as growing up in Detroit, do you feel like society as a whole failed you?
Society, yes, because society is not a collective group anymore. I remember that the saying is, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, people are not like that anymore. It's like, they're all for ourselves. And in Detroit, it seems like a lot of people who make it, they leave. Affluent people, once they make it, they leave the city. And then leaving like children like me, behind, trying to figure out what we were going to do. Because even when I went to college, I didn't know what the majors were. I didn't know I majored in accounting. I didn't know what an accountant was. I didn't know what a mortician was or mortuary science was. I didn't know those things because I had nobody in my neighborhood that actually represented that. If you weren't like at the factory or something like that, that's all I knew. But so society as a whole did fail because we don't come together and raise children as a collective group. It's like it's every man for themselves now.
And I think, you just spoke about it when you have this, when people in a city move up and get a better job, they're like, oh, I'm going to move out then. And then that leaves not a lot of role models for the kids and the youth to look up to and say, oh gosh, I have other options, I have other choices. And so,
right. And that's my mission, that's my purpose, to really show people that you have another choice. You don't have to look at the drug dealer or the athlete and think that's your only way, your only outlet. No, there's millions of outlets. You can create one, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm creating an outlet. I mean, I went to school for accounting, but I'm not doing accounting. I'm a writer now, and I'm a motivational speaker, and so I created a way for myself to be successful. And that's what I really want to instill in children in Detroit.
And the book, it sounds like, is really, it sounds like it's maybe could be perceived as a story of struggle or a story of, enduring pain, but it's really a story of hope and motivation.
Yeah, it definitely is, because I believe that with pain, with tribulation comes hope. Because if you never experience pain, you don't know what hope really is. You don't understand what joy really is if you never hurt before. And so it's wrapped up in all of that. It's a very intimate story. I tell, exact details of how I feel, what I felt, what I did, and how I became successful, how I overcame all the many obstacles that I faced in my life to actually, do something that I never thought I would do. I wanted to go to school to hopefully graduate, but I graduated as valedictorian. I was nominated as one of the top 5 business students in Michigan. I never thought I would do that, but just because I had the initiative to actually go get what I want, I end up being better than I thought I ever could be.
Awesome.
And so that's what I wanted to try to teach people and tell people, not just kids, but just people out as a whole.
That's great. Well,
so
thank
good.
you, Kevin. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with Kevin L. Brown. So please stay tuned.
You realize that 49 million Americans struggle with hunger? That's 1 out of every 6 Americans.
These people are around us every day. They're our friends, they're our coworkers, their kids go to school with our kids.
Sometimes we're not even aware that they're struggling. This problem is closer than you think. So is the solution.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank. flip 6 stairs takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Welcome home, man.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Lauren Stenberger.
And I'm Chris Benson. Joining us today is motivational speaker and author Kevin L. Brown. He is here talking about the book, Chasing Crows. So Kevin, tell us about the book.
The book, for me, was emotional healing. It's written therapy for me. I actually wrote the book in 2 weeks. I kid you not. And a lot of people are like, oh, how did you do that? Because it was like so much in my mind, so much I was going through. And for me to actually see what I was able to accomplish, actually put it into perspective, like, wow, I actually kind of did something. You know, so, you know, that's it was my journey. It's me and my son's journey. It's everything I have. Everything I have to give is just written down on paper.
Oh, wow.
So I have to ask about the title, Chasing Crows. Can you tell us what inspired the title?
Definitely. Well, I'm a movie fanatic, and one of my favorite movies is The Wiz. And my favorite scene is when Dorothy was played by Diana Ross and Michael, the Scarecrow, who's played by Michael Jackson. They first meet, and they meet in like this junkyard. And the Scarecrow was impaled on some poles, and he had a bunch of crows around him. Now, the crows claimed to be the Scarecrow's friends. They claimed to have his best interests at heart. But the Scarecrow had a dream of getting down off the pole from where he was hanging and venture out to see what the world was like. But as soon as he mentioned this to his friends, who were the crows, they would tell him, no, your position is right there on the pole. You can't do nothing. There's nothing in this life for you. And so my definition of a crow is anything that stands in your way, any barrier. A crow is an ambiguous manifestation. It can be tangible or intangible. A crow can be a person, a handicap, a situation, your past, anything that stands in your way. See, once you label something, you know how to categorize it in your life. If you label a person a crow, you know you can't go to them for motivation. So it's something I use to help me get through the hurdles and the brick walls that I had to go through in my journey and trying to become successful.
You mentioned that it came out in an outpouring of 2 weeks, but can you think back to that moment when you knew you were going to write this book? Like, what motivated, like, where did that come from? That moment when you said, that's it, I have to sit down and write this book?
Well, people have always told me, you need to put your story on paper. It's magnificent, you know. But I was in a relationship with somebody at the time, and the relationship was sour, and I was just so frustrated with where my life was headed, and frustrated with the relationship that I literally closed myself off in the room, and 2 weeks later, I was done with the book. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Now, so you said you're also a motivational speaker and you go and talk with the youth.
Yes.
Can you tell me where you go? Do you go into the high schools, and what do you talk to them about?
I would go anywhere that there's an ear that's willing to hear. I go to prisons, I go to juvenile institutions, I go to high schools, I go to elementary schools, I go to universities, business meetings, anywhere that's willing to hear a story of motivation and something positive that, you know, people can feed from and learn from and grow from.
Okay. If you could talk to youth right now, what is the main point that you want to tell youth these days?
What are you willing to die for? I mean, I think the sense of people don't have a sense of urgency about their life. I mean, it seems like people walk around a lot thinking they're privileged to live forever, and that the only time that they want to do something is like a thing called a bucket list is now out. And the bucket list for me is like pure insanity, because you don't decide to do something with your life until you're given a death sentence by a physician to die. No, but then I tell people, theoretically, you are born with a death sentence, so why not live every day living out the 9 items on your bucket list, or create something that you want to do? It's a sense of urgency, because you don't never know how long you're blessed to be on earth. So you have to value what you're doing. You have to take pride in what you're doing. You have to figure out, what are you willing to die for? Find your passion, find your why, find the things in your life that's really meaningful to you.
That's great. I know nowadays everybody has that bucket list,
Yeah.
but we all really are born with a bucket list
Exactly.
already, and we should.
Exactly.
That's great advice.
So you went from this time of struggle to Wayne State, to achieving all these things you mentioned in the first part of the show at Wayne State. what does that feel like when you're graduating Wayne State and you're looking back and you're knowing you've accomplished all of these things?
See, I really believe that success is a living, breathing state. So you're only good as your last success. So I look at those things like, great, I did it. What's next? You know, how can I be more successful? How can I impact more people? I always had that hunger. You know, a lot of people are like, you wrote a book, you graduated from Wayne State University, you have an MBA. I'm like, okay, what's next?
And?
I don't know. It's like, I really believe if you haven't impacted somebody's life on this world, then there's no point in living. And that's what I live by, and that's what drives me, impacting somebody so they can change their life. There might be somebody out there who wants to commit suicide, who thinks their life is meaningless, who thinks that their best opportunity is to go out and rob somebody, but they hear my story, they hear my journey. Maybe they want to change their life and go in a different pattern. I want to be that example for somebody.
And thinking back to your classmates at Wayne State, you're a wonderful orator, and I mean, there's just a passion. You're just so passionate about this. Is that the message you were giving all along at Wayne State? Were you going through a struggle? Like, what was that like?
I had that passion, but it wasn't directed towards helping other people. It was more towards my studies and my son. But now it's like it's directed towards people, and people notice that. They look at me like, your work ethic is crazy. You know, they've always said that about me. I mean, because I've always said that I've never been the smartest person in the classroom ever, but I will outwork anybody. You know, and that's the main thing that if you want to sum up success in one word, it's effort. Period. It's effort. How hard are you willing to work? And that's the mentality that I've always had.
And there's a quote that says, perseverance is the hard work you do after the hard work you already did.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's something that you definitely subscribe to.
Exactly, yeah, definitely.
Well,
That's wonderful.
Again, the book is Chasing Crows. We're going to take a very short break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more with Kevin L. Brown, so stay tuned to hear more.
Listen.
You're ugly.
Nobody loves you. Ever hear these words?
Hey, useless. Don't you do anything right?
Do they sound familiar?
You're a horrible person. Get rid of yourself. Do the world a favor. Leave.
Do you say them? To yourself?
Hello?
Up to 24 million people in the US are their own worst enemy.
I need to lose 30 pounds. How come I can't be pretty? Ugh, I look so fat. Those love handles? That's it, I'm not eating this week.
I rule your life!
You are worth it. The disorder is not.
Sticks and stones can break my bones, but